Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
It's the morning drive. This is Mira Business FM. Tomorrow, the 2026 FIFA World Cup kicks off officially. It's across Mexico, Canada, the US, and it launches the largest, most logistically massive tournament in sporting history. 48 teams preparing to battle it out on the grass. But there is also an equally kind of ruthless war being fought off the pitch already. Global brands racing to capture the attention of billions of fans, and mainly fractured attention as well, from TV to radio to socials to Nike's Cole Palmer ad to the rise of fan-first campaigns. What works in sports marketing now is one of the questions I'd like to get an answer to this morning. Pete Jacob is the Managing Director of the public relations firm, marketing firm as well, Current Global Menet, Middle East, North Africa and Turkey, and he's with me. It's good to meet you.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Good to have you here. I want to look at this kind of through a PR marketing lens, if we can, and basically sit and talk football for half an hour, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But let's start with the scale of the tournament, because we've got three host nations, we've got multiple time zones, we've got there's so much to look at here. The traditional kind of TV commercial high budget thing doesn't really cut it now, does it? So how radically have corporate sponsors had to alter media buying strategies, what they're putting forward, the attention they're seeking, compared to Qatar? That was only 4 years ago.
Well, I think that's you said the right word there is massive, right? And that is particularly the difference from, you just think of the footprint of this tournament, and it's, as you said, 3 continents, expanded this time round as well, 48 teams. I think even as a diehard football fan, I nearly said soccer then.
Yeah, I would
nearly
have
said
up
soccer.
on that.
Yeah, we'd have had to start again.
Yeah, we would.
Diehard football fan. There's over 100 games.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a war of attrition to watch every single game. Time zone wise for us here in the Middle East as well. You know, I was talking with someone yesterday. Monday, I think there's 5 games going on in a 24-hour period for us here. So there's a challenge for fans just to keep up. But if you're an official partner around the World Cup and you've paid a fairly pretty penny, I was going to test you actually, Tim, to see if you could name me who the official partners were for the FIFA World Cup. I won't.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'll end up watching games. I don't really watch a lot of international football.
Right.
I'm not a big World Cup person. But of course, you know, I'm watching some of the hype around it. But I could not name you an official partner.
No, and that's probably
I could probably name you one. No, I couldn't even do that. Who are they?
So you're testing me now. You've got the ones that have been supporting FIFA for a little while. So PepsiCo, through Lay's, or I think we'd know it as Walkers. So
that would have been my guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aramco, so obviously going in this year as well. Hyundai, from an automotive.
Right.
McDonald's have been sort of in and around the World Cup for a wee while. You may have seen one of the activations. They're sort of doing promos and sort of products, packaging and stuff.
Okay.
So it's a real mix. But if you're one of those brands, how do you just be present across 3 continents, multiple time zones, nearly 6 weeks of a tournament? It's tough and it's potentially extremely expensive. Right?
Well, this is the thing. So let me turn this around to you. What should be your primary motivation just to be present, just to be as front of mind as you possibly can?
Well, it depends what kind of brand you are, what you're doing. If you're one of the official sponsors, I would argue the check you have written is really the entry cost.
Bigger
right?
is the better.
Well, what a lot of brands don't do is they'll sign a check in the boardroom, get some TV board advertising, maybe run a competition, take some partners to a ticket. You actually need to be almost spending double the actual cost of the actual rights acquisition itself to actually activate the property, the asset.
Wow.
If you're an unofficial, or anyone else who's not an official partner, you've got to be very clever. I actually did a bit of work with FIFA many years ago. The first time in my life I've had 13 missed calls when I woke up to find that the FBI had broken down the door to where my client was staying. But they are fiercely litigious. You know, there's some rules and regs in terms of what you can and cannot say as a unofficial partner.
Yeah.
But I think maybe get into this, there's big opportunities for all types of brands, businesses to get some momentum, feed into because what's happening is it's not just you've got billions of people watching a tournament. There's a shared behavior and a passion going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opportunity that brands have got, big, small, medium, local, international, over the next few weeks.
Well, there's a great opportunity, isn't there, to latch on to not just like a collective set of behaviours. There's also the tribal behaviour that runs under that.
Yeah.
So there are so many different ways, I think, of doing it. Let's look at something in particular in terms of creative execution. Nike have made some waves with their Scary Good football campaign.
Yeah.
So that leans on the kind of cultural relevance of, essentially Cole Palmer, the Chelsea player.
Yeah.
Rather than, generic kind of team hype, it's very much kind of focused on him as a personality, although he seems to not care about being a personality in any way, shape or form. So there's that. But it feels to me like the era of kind of the big scripted cinematic stuff is replaced by campaigns that sort of mirror online culture in a lot of ways. Internet memes and stuff like that, the personalities or not of individual athletes. Why does that work so well? Because that's a very, very specific way of marketing.
Yeah, look, I think both Nike and Adidas, and by the way, of those, Adidas is the official partner of the FIFA World Cup.
Okay.
In case you didn't know. They have both come out with what I would call their signature statement creative. They're not really adverts because you're never actually going to see that video in an advert form. You've probably watched it on YouTube.
I've watched it on YouTube.
Someone sent it round.
Yeah.
Nike in particular, I think, is an interesting one. And you're absolutely right. They have Cole Palmer as part of, to be fair, a fairly broad stable of athletes.
Sure.
Both, and I think this is interesting this time round, is it's not just footballers, it's also Kim Kardashian pops up, Travis Scott. I
couldn't work that out, but anyway, she's there.
So they're almost, well, I'm not sure quite what the relevance is with Kim and football, but Nike leaning into that far broader, football's taken on a much broader cultural piece now. Now, a lot of the headlines I think you and I would have seen is Nike launches advert with Cole Palmer, who's not even in the England squad.
Yes.
That is a risk that I think any brand has to take when they are signing up an athlete. I think what Nike have done, though, is it's less about Cole Palmer, England football player. It's more about his cultural impact. Now, he does actually have a very big cultural impact just for his celebrations. He's actually famously trademarked it. So they've lent in quite heavily to that, and I actually showed it to I've got 3 kids. I showed it to my middle one, Teddy, just to see what his and his mates' reaction to it was.
How old is he?
He is 8.
Okay.
And they were absolutely transfixed by it.
Really?
It's also highly clippable. And that's the other piece you see with these big set pieces of content is it's to be clipped up into TikTok and Snapchats and Instagram.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that because I was watching it. It's a 5-6 minute
it's a
piece of film.
Like a cinematic sort of short story.
It's split into chapters almost, isn't it? Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
And Adidas took a slightly different perspective. Timothy Chalamet was the sort of voice of that. He actually used to play football at quite a high level. Believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
And he narrates it, and there's actually quite a cool sort of creative execution on that. I think, what the World Cup does for those two brands is gives them a flexion point to come out, right? To say, we're here, these are who we work with, there's some product placement there as well. I think Nike in particular have used it. They've had a couple of challenging years. They've almost gone back to, you'll probably remember from previous World Cups, some of those famous Brazilians in airports, ads, and all sorts of things. I think they've used it as a bit of a statement. But it's kind of beyond that. The question becomes, well, does it actually sell any extra product?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure it does. But what it does do is, in terms of brand affinity, gets people talking about the brand. Otherwise, when would you be talking about Nike or Adidas on a pod? So I think that's half of the the opportunity with something like the World Cup is it's a moment where brands can come out and talk about stuff, do some interesting kind of activities and creative.
It's interesting that you say, does it sell any product? But when you have brands like these, essentially youth brands, but Adidas and Nike are both legacy brands now, aren't they? And that's juxtaposition, I suppose. But you're either one or the other. I am personally very firmly one of those two brands, and I would buy that.
Interesting,
and wouldn't buy the other. So there's a tribal feeling there.
Yeah.
But it's the, I guess they play off of the reminder and the involvement. It seems to me, if it's not about moving product, it's about a feeling. It's a reminder.
1,000%, 1,000%, and I think Nike does that pretty cleverly. Of also that, like Eric Cantona turns up for a section in there where he talks about
in black and white.
Yes,
well.
exactly. So there's also, if you really are sad enough like me, there's lots of Easter eggs within it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Certain things on tables which are supposed to denote sort of certain things. So it is Nike's attempt to sort of really lean into a heritage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at athletes, I think it's fascinating now. It's not just the footballers. Legends are almost, former players are almost as important and as influential.
Well, Zlatan in this, for example, there's a great focus
you can
on.
argue he's a starring role, right?
Well, you think so, and you see all of the peripheral stuff around this, the social media that surrounds Zlatan at the moment. And Channing Tatum as Erling Haaland, I think, was that's a star moment.
Stroke of genius.
That's very smart.
Yeah.
We could do a whole conversation just on the Nike ad and the Cole Palmer effect. I would also argue, and I think from one side, I see the Cole Palmer thing as it's a shame that he wasn't picked for him in the team, and it's a shame for Nike that he wasn't picked. But I can sort of see the cultural relevance of a guy like that, the way he is with the media, the way he represents football as well. He's a role model in a very different way, I think, for the younger generation.
Absolutely. And I think if you're someone like, and the sports brands take different approaches, right? They all have stables of athletes, some bigger than others. Yeah. All of them are seriously thought about and handpicked. And Cole Palmer is of the generation now of he has an on-field persona and an off-field persona.
Yes, he does.
The sporting performance.
Yeah.
Is almost slightly detached from the off-field persona as well. And I think athletes are far more, they're just a different generation to me and you. They've grown up in a social media world. They're very cognizant of their brand. A lot of the women footballers actually are doing some amazing work online. And I think in the old days, I've worked on some interesting projects where the brand says to someone, we want you to do this, and you can see that person is massively uncomfortable doing it. We've done shoots in the last sort of 18 months where athletes are coming with their ideas of, why don't we do this? I think we should do something like this. They're far more attuned to working with a brand, because it's more authentic that way, right? Than, how can I say this without getting told off? Let's say a crypto exchange where you're asking a football manager who may have recently retired to say these words to camera. Does that really come across as authentic? I don't think it does. So again, I think athletes are kind of wanting to associate with brands that want to work with them.
And well, I was going to ask you that. Specifically that question, because it does seem to be very much the athletes. I mean, the whole premise of the Nike thing, the rip the script thing, is they're ignoring the director. They're just doing their. It's all about football skill, isn't it? In theory, around this kind of huge set, and it's almost as though the way to do this, and this relates to authenticity as well. That word that we all overuse now is that the stiff kind of corporate slogans just don't cut it, and it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think that's what brands have had to learn a lot more over the last few years is you have to lose control of your brand to some extent. I think the rise of fandom has always been something that in theory sponsors should have been bothered about. I think even more so now. The silly phrase I use is athlete or celebrity sponsorship will give you the fame. It's the fandom that will give you the longevity, right? The fans are the ones who actually amplify your brand. They're the ones in the WhatsApp chats who are cutting together content, who are then, engaging with it. That's the bridgehead that brands are looking for. It's how do you really get into the zeitgeist, the mindset, the rituals of those fans, and that's what the FIFA World Cup's all about. It's about one thing: it's passion.
Well, that's absolutely true. And the fans are the ones wearing your kit. They're wearing your sneakers, training shoes, whatever you want to call them. No, I get that. But that's always been the case with football. It's often forgotten that actually it really is about the fans and the supporters of the clubs and that the tribal nature of that.
Yeah.
So there's this move towards sort of fan-first campaigns, right? Brands aren't just broadcasting at consumers anymore. They're kind of begging the consumer to create content with them.
Yeah.
So there's like the digital filters and gaming integrations, real-time stuff as well, right? Community-led fan zones. Are fans now more important marketers than the athletes?
I think so. Right. Yeah, I think they are. There's more of them. And I think the old adage is true, and we say this in PR, the single most trusted source that anyone has is their friends or family. If someone says, hey, have you seen this? Or, we were talking about a product in the green room before this of, what do you think about that? If someone recommends something or says, I've seen this, even on, what Netflix series you're watching, oh, you must be watching this. That's the gold dust, but that any marketeer is looking for. You can call it advocacy, recommendation, endorsement. That's really what you're looking for. But I think brands need to be really careful. Where you're trying to force your way into that conversation, where it becomes overly corporate, where it becomes too clinical, I think there's a very fine line where you can sort of turn fans off. You just got to do something useful, nice, and entertaining, I think, as a brand to really engage fans.
You need acceptance, don't you?
Yeah.
That's what it needs to be.
You've got to earn your way in there. Right?
There's something about it that needs to fit. Otherwise, it's very easy. The misstep's really easy.
Yeah.
Fans. What does a successful fan-first campaign look like in practice?
Yeah.
Have you got any examples of a brand that has successfully turned kind of passive viewers into active community ambassadors?
I think Lay's is one of the actually really good examples. Like I say, I think we talk about it as Walkers. Been a long sort of term sponsor, partner, not just in the World Cup, but in football, in the Champions League. You may or may not have seen they kicked off something a couple of weeks ago, which is essentially a global watch party concept, which I think is really clever. They actually use Steve Carell, back to our point about outside of just footballers.
Gotcha.
Obviously, your David Beckham and your Thierry Henry were in there as well. What they've been able to do is create this global watch party, which has live WhatsApp chat. You can join. There's something like 4 million people on that. Live, supposedly authentic live response from David Beckham and Leo Messi and Steve Carell and some of the other brands itself. I think that's quite cute. I think they're looking at it from a global audience perspective because they're a global brand.
There's a sense of community in that as well. There's a sense of belonging, which is a good thing.
I think other things just useful. I think opportunities that brands here could be thinking about. You may have seen, I thought the Talabat Todd tie-up was quite interesting. They've done a partnership where you buy a Talabat subscription, Todd or Bein, who are the official broadcaster. You can actually watch the games through the Talabat app.
Smart.
Why is that smart? Well, 2 a.m., you and I are watching the game. We're probably going to get hungry.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing about second screening now where people watch something on a TV, and if you're anything like me, you've probably got 2 bloody screens.
I think you've got third screening now.
Screening.
Yeah.
And I think that 2 a.m. moment's actually quite an interesting one for us in this region. And I think Talabat have probably thought about that, of how can we serve those individuals, those groups at 2 a.m. who fancy a feed or a little snack to be delivered. So I think that's kind of cute.
That's very smart, actually, and that's an effect of the time zone shift, isn't it? Look, we're really short on time. I have a Chelsea fan coming in next. Not my, nothing to do with me. Let me tell you. So I have to pick a couple of questions for you. One thing I am interested in is this: we're seeing a tournament split across 3 huge nations.
Massive, yeah.
Geographically, US, Canada, Mexico.
Yeah.
The same time, here in the GCC, fans are going to be watching matches late at night or early in the morning.
Yeah.
How do global brands calibrate their messaging to handle that kind of shift, the geographical shift, the cultural split?
Yeah.
Because it's
Tricky.
tricky is one way.
I think you need to think about it as 2 ways. There's the game that's going on over 90 or, depending how much time's added on, 100 or so minutes.
Yeah, exactly right.
Actually, the big opportunity is after the game. It's the comment, it's the reaction, it's the clips, it's the stats, it's the fan reaction,
The controversy, the penalty, the
exactly,
all of that stuff.
exactly. I think they're the moments. Don't think of this as there are a number of games going on over I think it's 5.5 week, 6 week period. They will be peak moments. But actually, it's the duration of the tournament, which I think is the opportunity for brands, and that's where you can kind of look to get engaged in around those moments before, probably not during, but I think after is going to be something really interesting.
Okay, so what always happens with things like this is there are so many marketing opportunities and sales opportunities, public relations opportunities, just visibility opportunities. And it's very much the case that you kind of bolt yourself on and here's my World Cup bit. It's an afterthought kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be so much World Cup noise. But how do you do that without it just being a bolt-on that people kind of
really
point at?
great question. And I've had a few marketing directors who said, what's the World Cup idea?
Right.
Now, you don't necessarily have to have one. I think you've got to work out a way of authentically what is the right way for us to be engaging around this. Some of it might just be, hey, let's just use it as a moment, as a watch party, right? Just hire a venue, do a screening, invite some people in.
Yeah.
One of the ones I loved, I think it was Brazil, I think Lloyd's of London did an amazing idea, which was the insurance value of the players. That, for me, is a really lovely idea. It plays to the core focus of that business. It's a story that crosses cultures, crosses conversations.
Yeah.
I also think brands should not be ignoring the anti-football brigade as well. There are going to be audiences who will purposely be avoiding said period. My wife is one of those. When I told her it was nearly 6 weeks and 100+ games, the look on her face was...
Did she back a case?
A picture, very nearly.
Yeah.
But I don't know, if you were a Pilates studio or a spinning class, could you be thinking of, well, what is my audience that I'm going after? And I think that's what brands need to also think, is it's not one homogenous audience. Everybody's very different. We've got uniquely here in the UAE, lots of different communities, different audiences, diasporas, who have quite big, presences here, which could mean the Scotland-Haiti game that's shown in Satwa could actually have some fairly interesting sort of audiences around there. So I think that's something you can really think of, and really trying to insert yourself credibly, authentically, usefully entertaining, in an entertaining manner in a moment. In a moment, right? It might be a statistics moment. It might be I was trying to sell to some of my clients, why is no one doing a wall calendar chart? Do you remember as kids, you'd always have the wall chart up?
I love all that. I love the Excel sheet that goes out as
yeah,
well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's sort of fancy footballing kind of going around. There's the morning after recovery to work period. There's all of these kind of moments which brands can be thinking of, what could we do there? The creative output might just be a clever radio ad, right? That's capturing someone at 8 a.m. that's talking to that moment of where they're sort of bleary-eyed, sort of getting into the office. So lots of opportunities around there. But like I said, to any brands listening, be authentic, be useful, be entertaining, and don't try and unnaturally force your way into the conversation if it's not the right thing to do.
Excuse the pun, but it's the biggest pitch on earth, isn't it? I was quite proud of that. You probably heard
And
it.
clip that up.
Thanks very much. Yeah, there you go. There's the Instagram reel. Should have tried harder. It's the FIFA World Cup 2026 from tomorrow. Pete Jacob is the Manager Director for Current Global, Middle East, North Africa and Turkey. Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. This is Mira Business FM. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and mirabusiness.fm.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio. Business FM, your daily guide to the markets, money, and more.
This is the Morning Drive from Mira Business FM. Property once again, and here is our property expert. He is a newspaper columnist with the national newspaper. He is a podcaster and an all-round sharp-dressed man. Mario Volpi.
Good morning, Tim.
I'm really digging the suit with the red tie this morning.
Thank you.
I like the idea of 70s parlance, the dig in a suit, but you look very well. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about the World Cup or Cole Palmer? That's what we were talking about just now.
I was listening in the green room a little bit. Football is very tribal, is life, as they say.
Is life.
Was that was it Sir Stanley Matthews that said that, or was it?
It was the guy in Ted Lasso, I thought, the
really?
Mexican player in Richmond football. What was it? AFC Richmond, wasn't it? Football is life. Danny Rojas.
That was my manor, Richmond.
I know
in
you're
London.
from that area, aren't you?
But, and whilst it's filmed in Richmond, I mean, it is a fictitious club.
Fictitious club,
but
the area.
But the area, and there's a shop now there, and you can buy all the memorabilia. It's super expensive though. I bought a Believe badge, and it was like £5 or something for a tiny little pin. Outrageous.
Yeah, but they saw you coming, and they
Well,
thought,
they did, because you often we're losing 2-0, and you've got to believe.
There's a lot of truth in that. That halftime team talk. Believe in what you can do. There's a great deal. I like that.
Yeah, look, football is amazing. It takes over pretty much all my life when I'm not in real estate, as you know, with Chelsea. But I'm very disappointed being an Italian national, and this is the third World Cup in a row that Italy is not there, and it is a national disgrace as far as I'm concerned. And we're clearly rotten to the core from the top down. We need to make some changes. Ironically, the under-17s won the European Championship recently. I think it was a few days ago. So that bodes well, maybe for the next World Cup. One would hope that we could actually qualify. But I was just talking to the gentleman in the green room as well, saying that, I mean, and I'm not trying to sort of pick holes here, but Italy got more points and didn't qualify than some of these lesser-known areas or African areas or Asian areas in terms of they qualified on less points because Europe has so many. Yeah. I suppose they have to raise the standard. So I get it, but it's just so disappointing. And a World Cup without Italy to me doesn't seem a World Cup. Having said all of that, when Trump perhaps alluded to Meloni that maybe Italy could get in via the back door, she slammed that door saying no, thank you. And rightly so, because one wouldn't want to be there under false pretenses. And actually, I think the way we've been playing, we probably wouldn't even get out the group. Although I think if you win one game, because there's so many teams now, I think if you win one game,
it's 48 teams now.
You've got a chance of getting through to the next round. But anyway, the point I'm saying is I don't think we didn't deserve it. Yes, it's terrible, but what to do? We can just dust off and start building again.
Well, you've got 6 weeks of...
No, I meant we've got 4 years to build again.
Yeah, no, that's true. But we've now got six weeks of early mornings, late nights, and all sorts of stuff. Let's see what happens. Who would be your bet for the tournament? Who would you favour? Do you think? Because it starts tomorrow.
Yeah, look, I think England have a shout. France, obviously. Spain.
Are France favourites? They're up there, aren't they?
They're definitely up there. Yeah. Everyone's saying Brazil is good, but I'm not so sure Brazil will go as far as they think. Look, you've got Argentina, who is the world champions. Let's see if they're able to hold on. In fact, apparently I heard there's only two teams that have won back-to-back World Cups. One was Italy in 1934, 1938, and one was Brazil, sort of in the 50s. There hasn't been a team that has consecutively, beyond two. So if Argentina happen to do it, they'll only be the third nation to do that. There's a stat for you in the morning.
That's a great stat. You know, my favourite World Cup?
Italia 90.
That's exactly what it was.
Well, so coming back from London, I watched. It's a documentary on Italia 90, but it's over, I think, 4 episodes with 1 hour each, so it's quite a good watch. And it follows certain teams, one of which was Germany because they just had the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Another one was Yugoslavia was about to go into civil war. So you had people, you had Serbians, you had Croats, you had Bosnians, all in the same team. And what they were trying to say is, if we can play under the one flag of Yugoslavia, to the whole countries of former Yugoslavia, like sort yourselves out. And the coach that was the Yugoslavian coach at the time brought a tear to my eye, actually, because it came up after a particular episode where he was talking that he passed away 2 days after doing that interview, because he was quite an old man anyway. But he sort of stopped the interview and said, "Can I have a glass of wine, please?" And the way he was so humble, he was like, "Give that man the best Barolo, please." Anyway, and then it came up that he passed away, so it was quite sad. But there was the Argentina, and obviously the final, and then, as I say, Germany with the unification. So you had Lothar Matthäus, you had Klinsmann on. I mean, it was an amazing documentary over 4 episodes. So I definitely recommend it if ever you travel. It's on Emirates, or I assume you can get it on Netflix or wherever. But it's a good one.
Yeah, it just stands out in memory. So the World Cup.
And Schillaci, of course. Toto Schillaci, Salvatore, who looks actually better now. They interviewed him. He looks better now than he did as a young man, playing in Italia 90 from Sicily.
That's just Italian men, Mario.
Okay, we age like wine, yeah?
That's a thing, yeah. And they just dress better. It's another story. I'll tell you off air. Okay. But I mean that in a complimentary fashion. So look, World Cup starts tomorrow. Let's talk real estate.
Real estate, yeah.
That's probably what we're here to do. Local real estate news first of all. This was an Arabian Business headline that I literally just glanced at, and it jumped off the page at me, off the screen at me. Thousands of new Dubai brokers register despite slowdown in property market, and it was big in capital letters, exclusive. Now, I didn't think that was the case. I wasn't being led to believe that that's the case because, for obvious reasons, is that the case? I wanted to ask you.
So, look, I'm just a small fish in a very big pond. I don't know everything. I can tell you that real estate companies are continuing to recruit.
Yeah.
But for agents, okay. For brokers.
Yeah.
Because the sort of backroom staff, managers, anybody that is on a salary has had a hit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Business definitely is down, and anybody telling you otherwise, I think, is deluded. So, we're not quite as we were, before. The market is tougher, and only the fittest survive. But it seems to me that the strategy of all these companies are still to keep having these sort of boiler room type companies where there's hundreds and hundreds of agents. Yeah. Maybe because it is so tough and not so many actually succeed. I suppose it's a throw enough mud on the wall, some of it will stick attitude that they're just wanting more and more agents to come and work with them. So am I feeling that more agents are coming to the market? Honestly, no. Okay, right. It's beyond what I'm seeing. What I can say is we are looking to grow the team, but not necessarily new agents. These are people moving from agency to agency, and if a good agent wants to move, often it's because he's either had an argument with his manager or something's gone wrong with that particular company and he's had enough and he's looking elsewhere. Because people don't tend to move around that much if they're good. It's the newbies, it's the new to industry people that obviously do come. And right now, I suppose most real estate companies have the luxury that they don't necessarily need to attract the new to industry people, because a lot of real estate companies have actually closed. A lot of companies have consolidated. But of course, brokers in the main are not actually paid a salary. So apart from sort of operational costs like visas and sort of RERA in terms of getting registered, the costs, it's a one-off cost, and then they're quite small. And then they start to do one or two deals, and they kind of start pay for themselves.
Sure.
So, of course, because they're not a great expense, unless you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, most companies are still obviously hiring. And so I think probably that's what might be coming out in this particular article, because I hadn't heard of it either. And it wasn't until you sort of sent it, I thought, well, look, what am I going to say there? And what I've said is exactly how I feel. Companies are growing, some of them. Some of them have closed down. Some of them have shrunk down. And the people within those companies are just kind of moving around, I guess. Now, if this report actually says that real estate licenses, and I'm talking about agencies now, are on the up again, well, that potentially would be a different story, because we did see a decline in those numbers, and in the main, most people would have welcomed that, because I think we had too many brokers, too many agencies anyway, and I think I've said before that in a sort of a weird way, this geopolitical situation has maybe helped a bit to wheedle out some people, to reduce down, because I think it was too bloated.
Well, that's the impression I get, because the headline is very specifically thousands of new Dubai brokers. So it is as though people are stepping in to fill that breach.
Yeah. Now, but my question is then, they're talking new people then. They have to.
In theory, yeah.
Well, I can say, given a choice, we are not looking at new people,
Right.
Because there is a big cost implication on both parties, both the so-called broker and the company, to start off with a new brokerage, because with a new to industry broker, if I put it that way, because you've got to train them up, and that training. First of all, it can take months and months for a new broker to do a deal. They could get lucky and do a rental in a shorter space of time, but generally speaking, it takes time.
Yeah.
They then get disillusioned. They've done all the training. The visa's been paid for. The RERA's been paid for, and then they decide this is not for them, or it's too tough, and they go. So the drop off is very, very high.
Yeah.
Because all you see and all you hear on the internet and these influencers, driving around in fancy cars, nicely dressed, watches, all sorts of stuff. It's natural to think, well, I can do that, especially if you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with humans, it's a bit of a nightmare, because they don't do what they're supposed to do.
They don't.
Would you like to buy this house? Yeah, I really, really like it. I'll call you in the morning. Yeah, let me just work my figures out. And then they ghost you. What happened? If you don't want it, just say, look, I've changed my mind. But the emotions involved in real estate is beyond the pale, honestly. So like I say, when you're dealing with human beings, they're very irrational, they're very unpredictable, perhaps. And so it's not for the faint-hearted, let's put it that way.
The Mario Volpi frustrations, the daily frustrations of a real estate agent. Let's look at some numbers then. This is another headline from day before yesterday, I think this is. UAE on course for long-term growth in its real estate sector over the next 5 years. No surprise in the headline, but this is from a market intelligence platform, Statista Market Insights, UAE real estate project. And I bring this up just because it's the size of this figure, $811 billion. That's nearly 3 trillion dirhams by the end of 2031.
Yeah, it's a huge amount. And I think I mentioned before that we will reach, if we haven't already, actually, I need to double check, that $1 trillion mark. If we're talking about 3 trillion, it's it's a massive business, real
In
estate.
5 years.
It's a lot. I think that's a bit optimistic, if I'm a bit honest with you. The government, the federal government, sits with all the heads of the Emirates, individually and obviously collectively, to come up with ideas to improve things. We've mentioned that before. Yeah. 5 years is a long time, and it isn't a long time at all, because you've got to remember we're in this period where this period where a lot of buyers, especially foreign buyers, are perhaps pausing, waiting for maybe the situation to become clearer, definitely calm down. Only yesterday we had further escalation, and that's, from my perspective, it's annoying as well in some respects, because we had, if I take you back maybe a couple of weeks before this rhetoric and this sort of slapping you and slapping me scenario, we were starting to see some sort of green shoots of activity. When it becomes the norm that everything's okay, even if you don't have a written document and a memorandum of understanding, an agreement, whatever. Yeah. But when we're left alone to get on with our lives, the norm starts to come back. And we were starting to see, one or two more sales. I've always said sales are still happening, rents are still happening. Yep. But meaningful, perhaps, if I can put it that way. And then you wake up to, a downed helicopter and a tit for tat, and it's so funny when I read somewhere that Donald Trump had dare I say, had the audacity to tell Netanyahu to be restrained and not to retaliate when Hezbollah was doing whatever they were doing, and now he came online to say, we reserve the right to do it. And somebody from the Israeli government said perhaps he should be restrained, just as a joke, because that's what he said to his prime minister. So, with all this sort of confusion, there is also a little bit of humor as well, because we are dealing with humans. And as I said, they are unpredictable. And as long as this conflict is still up in the air, it's a bit like we can't get over it, because we're still going through it, and that from an economic point of view is a problem, because people are still very, very interested in the UAE, especially in Dubai. Abu Dhabi tends to be bucking the trend right now. This is one thing I definitely do want to say. Yeah. That figure is huge that you just mentioned, but right now I'm not quite sure why. Whether it's they've got something, they've done it better, or I don't know, but or the pent-up demand, or maybe it's all local money, but they are selling out. Abu Dhabi, whatever they are launching, they are selling out. Al Hudriyat Island is a massive success. Obviously, Yas is there, the canal, even on the coast with Ohana, all of that is a big, big success. Whereas at the moment, Dubai seems to not be launching, clearly not as launching as much as they used to be. And in doing so, there's not much happening. Although developers are still reaching out and are starting to reach out. We've got Nikhil actually last week did a presentation at their office. And honestly, if you'd been there, I took a picture and I sent it to a colleague of mine saying, Dubai real estate is dead, being as sarcastic as I possibly could. It was rammed with agents talking about the developments within the fronds, looking, Palm Central it's called, looking down the fronds. These are apartments, 1, 2, 3-bedroom apartments, townhouses, that kind of thing. Right. And they're being sold on expressions of interest. And actually they started on Monday. I haven't heard yet the numbers, but I know that it was always a bit of a lottery to even get one of these. And Meres and Nikhil have a policy that every time they launch higher than the time before. It is a given, no matter what is going on. So the launch on Monday, for those that got in a few months back on Palm Jebel Ali, it's more expensive. And there are other phases coming, and they will be more expensive. That is their strategy. Now, maybe they launch less units to try and sell out, because the narrative is that it will sell out for sure.
Yeah.
And anybody that perhaps missed the shorelines or the properties on Palm Jumeirah 20 odd years ago, 22 years ago, I think if you're given an opportunity to buy, even under these circumstances, because when these are going to be built and handed over, one would expect or hope that we're not still in a conflict with Iran.
Well, this is the classic view of UAE property, isn't it? Those beachfront villas. That's the
these are apartments, but yes,
or apartments.
No, sure.
It's just that romantic view.
No, of course, and don't forget all the dare I say the mistakes of Palm Jumeirah have been rectified with the master plan and the community of Palm Jebel Ali. Not only is it double the size, the width between the fronds are bigger, the roads are bigger, the access into and out of Palm Jebel Ali has been increased threefold compared to Palm Jumeirah, and more hotels, more everything. So where perhaps things weren't quite perfect in Palm Jumeirah, they are going to be in Palm Jebel Ali. But from a real estate point of view, I'm just saying that any investor out there who perhaps wished that the timing was right for them, that they can do it now with Palm Jebel Ali.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but it's a huge number, and in 5 years, much as I'd like to think that they've got to aim for something, I'll be surprised if they get to 3 trillion in 5 years. That's a lot.
This is the headline, isn't it? But it jumps out at you. Then there's another piece of news, regional real estate news as well. Qatar widening the list of areas where non-Qatari buyers can invest. So it's a new resolution, government directive, I guess, that adds the Simaisma beach resort project is in Zone 70 to the ownership register. That took effect this week. So yet more indication, I suppose, that real estate is perhaps
well. Again, they're looking to try to
not where it's reported.
But they're looking to try to maybe stir up interest there.
Sure.
Qatar obviously is also, dare I say, struggling from the point of view of being in the firing line as well. I don't know much about Qatar. What I do know is that the Pearl, which was one of their first projects years and years ago, was probably the only one at the time that a foreign national could actually buy. Then they and there was hotels with licensed hotel or licensed premises, and then they revoked the license, which tanked the sales, I have to say, because if it's for a foreign national who enjoys a glass of grape now and then, and then you take that away from them, then clearly that was an issue. So, but for them now to open up other areas. Like Saudi has done, like we have also. Obviously we did it years and years and years ago, but there've been pockets. There's certain parts of Sheikh Zayed Road now that which are freehold, and other areas. So I think it's just a way of stimulating interest, stimulating movement, and people buying real estate. Because if now all of a sudden you can do something that yesterday you couldn't, the interest is definitely going to be there. From that perspective. So I suspect it won't be the last time either they, Qatar, or indeed Saudi, or dare I say even the UAE, will add a couple of more areas to that, because I've always said that they will always come up with things to try and just keep stimulating interest.
No, that's right. But and that's the point of this, isn't it? It's that looking to the future. What is going to come next? The natural next way to kind of approach it, I suppose. It's been a week since the rent freeze in Abu Dhabi. So we've now had some feedback, some reaction this week. Here's a headline from Monday. We would have been forced to leave. Abu Dhabi tenants relieved by the rent freeze. This was in Khalij Times. detailing a major regulatory directive issued by the Abu Dhabi Real Estate Centre, ADREC, that introduced the immediate temporary freeze on all rent hikes across the Emirates. Pretty key change. What have you heard in the last week?
Well, unlike Dubai, where rents definitely are, softening, it would appear that, again, Abu Dhabi is bucking that trend because rents were going up.
Yeah.
And so to sort of bring this in literally is giving some respite to these tenants. But what's interesting as well is that it's not just at renewal, because I thought it was just at the renewal. No, because if a tenant, for example, has left and the property was valued, or that tenant was paying, 150,000 dirhams, let's say, the property is now empty. Now, for Dubai, when a property is empty, the value of that property is market value.
Yes.
Okay, it's not governed by the the smart rental index. It is at renewal, but when it's empty, it's not. It's the market value. So what this has done, my understanding, is that the landlord cannot put the market price on that vacant property. He can only ask the same rent that the previous tenant who was there, who's now left.
It's closed. It's
closed it. Yeah,
that's right.
So that's a major change.
Yeah.
Because clearly vacant possession is certainly in Dubai is market price, and whatever someone's prepared to obviously pay for it. But now it's the same price, and so I guess investors, landlords can only rely from an income point of view, other than the actual income. Clearly, they can't. They can only rely on capital appreciation, if there is any. But it would appear, like I say, that Abu Dhabi seems to have got things better, or it's going better for them than it is in Dubai. We have an office in Abu Dhabi, but it's an office that hasn't actually opened up yet. We are recruiting for a manager, and we've highlighted a few people. So as soon as the head is put in place, then agents and brokers will follow, and then we'll be able to open it up. But it's an interesting concept, and if you'll permit me, because it's not just a traditional real estate office. It's just very small. First of all, it's in a very luxurious area.
Okay.
It's in Sadiat on Al Mamsha, which is on the beach.
Yeah.
It is a short distance to the Louvre, and a short distance to Carrefour there. There's only one other real estate company there, so it's quite exclusive. And the concept is that it's actually a coffee shop, or it will be a coffee shop. So it's basically a coffee shop where the agents, the brokers reside, if I can put it that way. Not reside as in live, but work.
Okay. Do they get free coffee?
Who? The agents?
The agents.
Well, we tend to get free coffee anyway in our offices because we have baristas, we have we have a kitchen, we have a kettle, So some companies will charge you, like my previous companies, because they had a barista and what have you. But generally speaking, it is free, But this concept is it's going to be a coffee shop where you, as the member of the public,
so I can
walk in there, get a croissant,
and
absolutely. The pastries are there. It's a coffee shop that also then has the service, if you like, of real estate. So if you wanted to discuss about real estate, that's where the people will be.
Okay.
And when I say it's a coffee shop, obviously it's chargeable. I mean, it's not free coffee for people. Otherwise, we'd be out of business. The queue would be out the door, wouldn't it?
There are two sides to this, and I kind of like it. I'm a fan of coffee shops. I'm a big coffee fan, so I get that. But I suppose if you're in the market to buy or to rent or whatever it is, and you can have a cup of coffee and a cappuccino and talk to somebody that knows about it, that makes sense. However, there's the other side of, I just fancy a coffee, and am I going to be sold to?
Well, look, I mean,
So
Yes, there is.
in my head. There's that but,
potentially, yes. Yeah. And that leads me to another story actually, where we were manning previous company. We were manning a Nakheel stand in Ibn Battuta, right?
Okay.
And this older Emirati gentleman, quite a bit older Emirati gentleman, came to the stand because he just wanted to sit down. And we said, yeah, please take a seat, whatever. Fine. But the funny thing is he kept saying, I'm not buying anything. I just want to sit down, right? So alluding to your, I just want a coffee. I don't want to be.
So you're saying you're looking a bit older today, Tim. That's what you're saying.
No. What I'm saying is that he came in, he wanted to sit down. And whilst he was there, he said, I'm not buying anything, but I do have a question. And we said, how can we help? And bearing in mind that the information desk of Ibn Battuta was 5 meters further down the corridor. You could see it from the stand, and this was a Nakheel stand. He said, I'm looking to hire a car, right? Do you know of any company? And then we started talking. Now, we were next to Starbucks, so one of the girls decided to go and get him a coffee. She got him a coffee, and she said, this is for you. Oh, that's very kind, thank you, but I'm not buying anything, Anyway, to cut a long story short, she kept in touch with that man, and that man bought a studio flat off that woman.
Oh, that's lovely.
So that's what I wanted to say. So back to Abu Dhabi, yes, by all means, go in there for a coffee. And of course, if you are interested in real estate, you might even get it for free. I don't know yet, maybe, possibly. Nice. The point is that, be wary. Because, some of these agents, some of these brokers, especially the ladies, they can be quite persuasive in terms of you go in for a coffee and you come out with a studio flat.
It might take a few years, but she'll get there in the end.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, clearly, that would be outrageous. He says, okay, where do I sign? No, it was follow-up after follow-up after follow-up. And look, he obviously saw sense in it. I mean,
But it's interesting that because, first of all, coffee opens doors. When you sit down and you offer somebody something, you share something with somebody. It's the opening sort of dialogue, the opening kind of warmth of conversation that may lead to a sale or not. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But it was just a kind thing to do. That person, that older Emirati gentleman, would have remembered that and has probably thought to himself, I'm going to buy an apartment, whatever it was for. And that name is in the memory bank.
Yeah, exactly.
That person.
Well, I always say, offer the right services and always be nice to people. You don't know what situation they're going through.
You don't know what's around the corner.
No, we don't. But also, I would urge, that's not just a message to brokers to be nice to clients, because that's a given. But I would actually say to clients, be nice to brokers, be nice to everyone, because you don't know what's going on. The trials and tribulations of a real estate agent. I mean, I saw one guy post something yesterday. He said, I just don't have a life anymore. Really? Literally, I'm putting my heart and soul into the role of a broker. I'm having to deal with clients from Australia, New Zealand to America. And so, of course, with the time frame, we were talking about watching the football at 2:00 in the morning. I mean, these people literally do not have a life, and so from that perspective, it can have a toll on you.
It's very tough.
And if you're on your own and you don't have a wife or a family or whatever, there's an argument there that again you can do it for some time. But he's been saying no to his friends. No, I can't go out. No, I can't do this. No. Because if he does not close a deal, he's not going to eat. And that's the stark reality of it all. And often, we hear stories of clients or buyers going behind the back of the agent or being cheap and saying, I'm not going to pay you a commission. I really don't know why people get off. I really don't. I mean, is society that bad? Or are we hated so much that they're not willing to? They want the service, they want the advice, they want the knowledge, and yet they're not prepared to pay for it.
I think you're particularly tarred by that same brush, unfortunately. But there are the rogue real estate agents. We're all very aware of the attitude. Of course we are. But we tar real estate agents the way we tar independent financial consultants.
All of them.
You know, unfortunately, that's how the vision
and there
is
are
coloured.
idiots in real estate. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, you've got the useless people, useless from the point of view that literally they have no common sense at all, who are trying this sector and failing at it. And of course, you're right. That brings the name into disrespect. You know, not doing what you say, not following up, or lying. I mean, just whatever it is out there, right? But you do also have a tremendous amount of people who literally, like that chap, is giving their heart and soul into trying to just make ends meet, and yet can be treated so terribly. Really.
It's a shame, isn't it? I mean, look, we've often said on this program that if you find a real estate agent worth their salt, then stick with them. This is somebody worth being around, because we all need somewhere to live.
Yeah,
and it is actually that it performs an important function. A good real estate agent, real estate broker, but tell everybody else that. I'm preaching to the converted.
Yeah,
here,
look, I mean, they'll say, "Oh, my heart bleeds for you, Mario," blah blah blah. But honestly, it's you've got to walk in someone's shoes for a little bit and to really have an opinion. And when you can see what I've seen over the years, listen, I've had the highest of the highs. Don't get me wrong. But also the lowest of the lows. And maybe, although it's regulated, you don't have to, be a brain surgeon to be a real estate agent. You just have to know how to communicate. And some people say the gift of the gab.
Some people say the gift of the gab to you, Mario Volpe.
Well, no, I'm saying that's what you might need.
What a surprise that is.
And for some people who don't know what that is, Tim will explain.
The gift of the gab is, it is very much you, because you're a person who you'll chat to anybody.
I will talk the hind legs off a donkey.
You are very good at communicating and being around people, and I think very good at making people feel comfortable.
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
I think that's a real benefit.
And for sure, if you're going into a sales environment,
it's going to be useful.
It has to be. But I always say, look, you don't have to be that extrovert person. You can be an introvert and be in real estate as well.
Sure.
As long as the person in front of you sees value in you. And that can come in many forms. Clearly, knowledge would be the main one. Access to things. Who you know rather than what you know as well comes into play. Is polite, is professional, and all the rest of it. And if you're all of that, then people will see value in you, and if they see value in you, they'll work with you. But there is no loyalty. There is zero loyalty in real estate, and that's happened to me many times where I've literally thought this person would do anything for me, and then it's surprising that they then go off and do something else with someone else, and you think, you feel like as if you've been cheated on.
Life throws you curveballs, doesn't it?
Tell me about it. So that's why I always now say, no matter what you think, there is no loyalty in real estate. It's in that moment. And no matter how great you've been and how grateful someone has been and has written an amazing review and you're the best thing since sliced bread, all of a sudden that could turn on a sixpence.
Where does that expression come from? The best thing since sliced bread?
Probably a Hovis advert in the 1950s.
Most likely. Do you know, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about today, because when there is a launch,
yes,
it stands out at the moment because there haven't been as many launches. Yes. A few months ago, a launch was just another launch.
Yeah, exactly. Every 13 hours or so.
Yeah, that's right. That was the statistic, wasn't it? This is, I think, really important. And I was talking to our guest yesterday, AJ from Lux Vista Real Estate, and he was talking about this, saying he thinks this is it looks great. I'm going to ask you about it. I know you know a little bit about it, but this is beyond development. It's a big deal. It's a 4 billion dirham master planned place in the city of Arabia, which is kind of Al Barari area of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Road. It's called The Yards. The first kind of residential cluster, I think, is launching now. Am I right in saying
I think
that?
it's next week.
Is it next? Right,
Yeah,
next week.
week is the actual launch. They're talking about it now, and obviously you've got the press release which hit yesterday.
It's called Aranthia or Arancia.
Well, I read it as Arancia.
Arancia. But I'm going with you because
the
you're the
actual-
Italian.
The way it's written in Italian means like oranges.
Oh, then Arancia.
Arancia.
How was that?
Yeah, no, very, very, very good.
Thanks very much. I just copied you. but I mean, the important thing about this is Beyond is part of the Omniac group, so premium brand. And we were talking about this off air just before we started, but it looks, it's a good launch and at good prices as well.
Yeah, that's sort of. I think they're starting at $1 million dirhams
For a one bedroom.
for a one bedroom. That's good because you consider that. I mean, Beyond themselves in Dubai Islands were launching much higher prices than that, and I suppose that's the allure of water and water views. This, however, is inland. I haven't actually seen if there's going to be any water features, if I can perhaps put it that way. And by that I mean even inland, they create these lagoons, they create these sort of waterways. That I'm not sure yet.
There's a valley running through it. I know that. I don't know if that includes water.
Well, they may fill it with water. I don't know. But at 11 o'clock this morning, so about an hour's time, I've actually got Beyond coming to the office to tell us more about it and how we can go about organising sales. No doubt there'll be expressions of interest again. But what I don't know is I know it's a 40-60 payment plan.
That's right.
I know there are thousands of sort of units starting from sort of one bedrooms. I don't believe there's any studios. At least I'm not aware of, certainly of this launch, but they're low rise. So we're not talking 50, 60 stories, podiums or G plus whatevers, and then up to about 5, 6, 7 stories, something like that, which is quite similar to some of the other developments like Jumeirah Garden City, which we mentioned before. I think they go up to about 9, 10 floors. So this sort of low-level master community seems to be what they're looking for, rather than the very high-rise which you get in downtown and the marina, etc. But no, it's their first foray into the desert.
That's right.
It's an established area, if I can put it that way. I mean, you mentioned Al Barari. Obviously, you've got the connectivity, and of course, the metro lines will be coming there, or at least they'll organise monorails to connect the metro line if it's not directly on it.
Okay.
So that there will be good connectivity, not just from a road point of view, but also from a metro point of view as well.
I mean, it's going to be sort of Mediterranean inspired, but I think what I liked about it was 3.1 meter ceiling heights. These are going to be big, airy rooms.
Believe it or not, that's also what Mira builds as well. The sort of feeling of space. So if the room, and they are, when I first came to Dubai, developers were building huge things. They've got a lot smaller over the years, and they've got smaller to try and keep the per square foot price down. So actually, you're paying more because you're getting less. But if you are raising the ceiling height, that sort of feeling of space kind of comes back, even though the walls are sort of like there.
It does. It's also great from a
tall person's point of view as well.
From a tall
That's what you were going to say.
That's a much better comment than I was going to make. But from a air conditioning, but from an energy point
heat
of view,
rises,
and
so
it makes a lot
you
more
should
sense.
be able to keep it cooler. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that you will see, especially if you travel to the UK or you're from the UK, because the ceilings there are quite low. I mean, the place we just bought, has a bedroom in the sort of the loft space, and literally it's only about 6'2". So and that's the ceiling height. So again, you can only have spotlights in the ceiling. You can't have pendant lights, etc. to have another meter, oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah,
you know?
it makes a difference.
So much so we had to have handmade wardrobes because they didn't fit. You know, so everything had to be the joiner had to be in it. So again, everything costs more money.
God, so handmade wardrobes and baristas with you, isn't it? It's just.
Well, I don't have any barista. Well, actually, I bought myself. No, last time I went to London at Christmas, I bought myself a Mocha Express. Okay,
Right.
An Italian cannot not have a Mocha Express.
A Bialetti.
A Bialetti, bravo.
Yes.
A Bialetti.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I bought. I bought it from John Lewis, who were having a sale, and so I bought a big one. And no one in my house drinks it because they just think they can't be. It's a faff. You got to fill the water. You got to put the coffee in. You put it in. Everything. It's not a faff. It takes 5 minutes.
Here's a question: do you leave? You know, you've got the little lever top lid. Do you, when you put it on, do you leave that off? Do you use hot water before you do it? Do you use cold water? How do you do it? Because there's a good argument that you should leave the lid open.
What for when it's percolating?
When it's percolating.
No,
up,
if you leave the lid open, the coffee goes everywhere.
No, you turn the heat down, obviously. I mean,
Oh, I see.
come on, we're not
No.
barbarians.
No, I was gonna- no.
I mean, you know.
I just right. If you're going to be a purist,
I'm asking an Italian here.
if you're going to be purist, use the bottled water for the thing, not tap
right.
water. But then in England, you can drink the tap water, whatever. Bottled water.
Okay.
Enough coffee. I put screw it down and I leave the lid down, and I put it on full. And within a few minutes, it's already percolated. When it starts to go like that, you know, I just turn the thing off. I don't open the lid. I just turn it off.
This is my favourite of all your appearances this morning. We've got baristas, we've done the World Cup, we've got built-in wardrobes.
I don't know how we got to Mocha Expresses.
And sound effects.
Yeah, but
As
anyway,
well.
I urge anybody, if they have a stove and they like their coffee, forget Nespresso, forget these machines, these DeLonghi's and everything, get yourself a Bialetti or a Mocha Express. And never wash it with soap, okay? Just rinse it with water, leave it on the side.
I'm completely with
yeah.
you. Yeah, absolutely with you. Yeah, completely right. Let's just let that settle there. And I've run out of comments.
No, I
actually.
fancy a coffee now. I'm going to go to my office just before Beyond turn up and have a nice coffee.
Oh man! So we've talked about developments today beyond the yards. 4 billion development. We talked about the rent freeze. What else have we done so far?
I mean, it's interesting to just say one thing about Beyond is that they, first of all, they sponsor PSG, okay, who went on to win the European Cup.
Yeah,
They beat Arsenal, for those that didn't see it.
Just you did that so well.
And
I didn't feel like that was shoehorned in.
The thing is, when we lost to PSG, and we did, I was offered the chance to go to Paris and watch the game. I'm glad I didn't because we lost. And it would have been a splash and dash. You know, go see the game, come back. You know, none of so that's heavy,
Right.
Especially with work and what have you. But they're an amazing company. The quality is up there, and I've mentioned before they are kind of like the Tudor to the Rolex. Rolex being Omniat, but of course with a much heavier price tag. Beyond are building great projects, but more importantly, the facilities and the quality is also going to be there. So, unless you really want the trophy asset, go with Omniat. But these projects are going to be good. So the fact that this one is going to be in the desert, no necessarily no water, perhaps, I don't know, but I think it will do very well from a connectivity point of view. And as I say, they build them very well. I'm not sure when the handover of this might be 2031. I don't know if it mentions that.
It doesn't say that in the press release, no.
But it's going to, when I say 2031, I'm not necessarily talking the whole thing. Being as they're low rise, they will hand over a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But I would suspect that, because this is a big project, that it might take, about 5 years.
Well, it's a big project. It's a big launch at a
finish.
time when we haven't had many launches. It's a good sign
Well, they're
of
starting
confidence
to
and a good
they are
development.
starting to come through. That's
They are now,
what
yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah,
to say.
that's true.
And that was because we were starting to come to some sort of normality.
Yeah.
And so slowly, the rabbits are back out into the meadow. because the wolf is still there, though, and that's why they go whoosh, like that, and they disappear.
You're poetic today as well. This is like a superstar appearance, Mario Volpe. I'll tell you. How did I describe you earlier? Property expert, newspaper columnist.
On air or in the green room?
Let's keep it clean. Podcaster. I'm adding poet and sharp-dressed man.
Wow, okay, poet.
There you
and
go.
I didn't even know it.
You didn't, and I hope you don't blow it.
Wow, that's a good one.
That's stolen from Bob Dylan, but, it had to come out. Mario Volpe, real estate expert. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Appreciate it. This is Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM, your daily guide to the markets, money, and more. Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
It's the morning drive. It's Mira Business FM. As conflict and breaking news dominate headlines around the world, we want to look at how media shapes perception in real time. Next, from war coverage and misinformation to Dubai's image on the international stage, the pressure on newsrooms has never been greater. With us is Mark Thompson. He's the editor-in-chief of Gulf News, hopefully to talk about the future of journalism, battle for credibility, how the region's viewed during a volatile news cycle, and probably a lot more. Probably too much, actually, Mark, but good to have you here. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, and pleasure to be here.
Well, you're very welcome. I wanted to hit the ground running, actually, with you. We are now smartphone users constantly. We all have one. So we're all journalists, aren't we? That much we all know. We're all reporters, citizen journalists, I suppose. With that in mind, what does the sort of the news front line look for you as a regional editor now?
It looks busy. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
As you say, there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of brands out there. There's a lot of influencers. There's state actors out there as well, and that's hard as well. There's AI kind of making it even more noisy, just when we thought it couldn't get any more noisy.
Yeah.
So the way that I see our role at Gulf News and other brands here as well, I think we are the solid rocks in the storm. That when all this noise is happening around, you know that there's certain brands you can go to and be like, I know that, I can trust that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll put my hand on heart, we might not be the most exciting, might not be the fastest, might not be the noisiest, but we're the kind of the rock where people can go to and say, yeah, this has happened, I'm just going to go and check with Gulf News to make sure that is actually correct.
See, I'm not so worried about not being the most exciting. I think that comes with age as well, by the way, probably. But I mean, the simple fact is, you compete with algorithms now. They thrive on speed. They thrive on being first. Very often at the expense of either accuracy and all too often truth. Right. So the ethics of daily reporting isn't what it was a few years ago. So let's say a big international story breaks. How do you and your team balance the fact that you have to get the news out there, the fact that you have to be accurate before you actually kind of click? I don't know if you actually do click publish. I suppose you do.
That's still a thing. Yeah.
But how do you get that balance now?
So that's a really good question, because that is very unique to every story. But to break it down really is we get the information first, like everyone else does to an extent. We've got certain sources, we've got certain access to certain things that other people don't have.
Sure.
We get that information, but then it is about checking that it came from people that we can verify and trust, and try and get two sources. So it might be we see something on social media that comes from a celebrity or a politician that comes out. We think there's a story. We just want to go and double check whether we can quickly fact check that and make sure there's another source that backs that up.
That still exists.
That's
exciting to me, because that's what I was taught or told years ago. Two sources.
Yeah.
Till you got two sources, don't.
Yeah, and that is actually different here, I think, to the UK. I'm from UK journalism, 20 years there.
Yep.
That has left some of that market, where some of that is now just get online, and some people call it not wrong for long online. You can publish something and then you can go back and change and say, oh yeah, we got it wrong, but we changed it. That's not what we do here. It's very different that we want to be right first time.
Well, the horse has bolted there, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
Do that. Yeah, okay. In terms of where we are right now, the times we're in at the moment, I mean, extraordinary times, there's no doubt about that. Do you think global media, has it become too sensational? Because it's really now about clicks, isn't it?
Yeah. I think, the conflict is a really good example of what's happened over the last few months. We obviously follow certain lines. We make sure that everything's verified, fact-checked, that we're reporting on what we do know has actually happened, and also that we've got lived experience of it here. So we've actually seen what's happened. We can feel it. Yeah. When you looked at, I'm not going to bash the UK media up for all of this, but you look at UK media, India media, or what was being posted there was fake videos, there was AI videos, there was... we had a fire video from weeks before the conflict that they took and turned into something's on fire in Dubai. They were calling places in Bahrain, Dubai, because it gets more clicks. And it just got really messy on their side. And if you looked at the UK media, I had my family ring me saying, why are you not coming home? It's awful. I'm like, I'm on the beach with the kids. I'm okay. I think that's the issue that we have here, is that a lot of people come into this market and think they know the UAE and know the Middle East, but actually you've got brands like Gulf News that live here, work here, know how it works. When those conflicts happen, we know how it actually feels to be here.
You're from here.
We're from here, yeah.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? No, I know. I mean, but this is the thing. For ages, I didn't meet anybody who was leaving.
Yeah.
I don't know many people that have taken off anyway. But there was that great, was it the Mail, I think it was, 1 in 8 British people have left. And when you examine that, it's a great headline. But you examine it and you think, well, most of them were tourists. Yeah. 7 out of 8 haven't left, is the other way of looking
And it was
at
the Easter holidays as well, so a lot of people go back.
Exactly right.
Home anyway.
Yeah, so it's very easy to be misleading. But I mean, the thing is, there is so much unverified footage, whether it's AI or whatever, and it circulates super fast on social platforms. Everybody sees it. People are questioning. There's a thirst for, you want information. But how hard is it now to separate the real verified ground level reporting from just the noise? Because it's like a mishmash, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really hard. It's getting harder because, I mean, we've had times in the office where we've been staring at images, staring at some stories, thinking, is this AI? With the naked eye, it's getting harder and harder to tell what is AI and what isn't.
Well, exactly.
That's our biggest challenge, I think, is going to be images and video. Because before, when you got a video, you knew that felt, it was something you could see, something you could visualize. You thought, I've got this video of something happening. I know that's true because that's factual. I can see with my eyeballs. Now we don't know if that's actually come out of some kind of AI engine. And that's the challenge that we have. So that becomes harder to verify. So before we might have ran those things, now we've got to, again, like you said, pause, check it. Because if we get one of those things wrong, we lose our credibility and we lose our place in the market, because our place in the market is being credible.
So it's back. In some ways, everything moves in cycles, doesn't it? So it's almost come full circle. So we're back to the hard-bitten, super cynical journalist hacks that are just like, that's not true.
Yeah.
I do not believe that. And it takes real investigation to get together. I got to be honest, I'd welcome that.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, 'cause I think it's really exciting. I think it's a really exciting time to be in media. I'm not AI is going to take over the world and destroy everything. I'm much more, it's going to change how we work. But it's going to be exciting because actually it may help us get back to what the foundations of the job actually are.
It's a fantastic research tool. Can do a lot more than, as long again, that you verify and check everything. But it does have that. Yeah. This is a really broad question, quite hard to answer, but I'm interested in what you might say. To what extent has social media affected or changed the way a traditional newsroom operates?
Yeah, I think social media is a broad term for a lot of things, and really it's the net of how we capture people. Really, is where I see it. So that's how do we engage with people across different platforms at different times of their day, when they're sat at home watching TV, flicking through their phone, messaging their friends. Social media is how we can engage with them directly at those points in time. However, it's incredibly, incredibly competitive. Yeah. And it's getting more competitive because everyone's, including mine, all of our attention spans are shrinking by the day, I think, and videos are getting shorter, articles are getting shorter, people flick faster, but it's a space that we have to be in. However, the way I see it is it's just a tool that we use to engage with people on the platforms that they're on. I still think it's about bringing those people into the brand so that they can then read and see deeper journalism over time. And in many ways, it's not too dissimilar. I always kind of go back to newspapers. I am old enough to remember kind of when newspapers were king. And I almost see like they're like the guys that were selling the newspapers on the street corners, shouting, get your newspaper, there's been a murder, etc., etc. Yeah, That's what we do on social media. We try and bring those people into our brand to then think, actually, Gulf News has got all this great stuff. I can download the app. It's all free. I can get more and more access to better things and learn more.
Okay. It's different, though. As consumers, it's different. It's not just newsrooms that have changed. Consumers are different. The way we digest information, I mean, you said it there, we're far more reactive, I think, now than not long ago, a decade ago, probably. It's that quick. So you kind of have to change the way you present facts, whether that's, across different platforms or the way a piece is written or a way a piece is delivered on video.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be much more, what's the word, multitaskable.
Multitaskable and entertaining.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Because people want, as you say, it's a fight for eyeballs, it's a fight for time. For example, today, obviously the World Cup's happening. We've got World Cup coverage coming. We have Shark the Hawk that we've just launched, who's going to predict a lot of the games.
This is the octopus of or whatever it was. Yeah.
It's not going to win me a Pulitzer Prize anytime soon. It's not hard-nosed journalism, but it's something fun, engaging, that brings people into what we do, but works on all those social channels and is shareable, engaging and fun. And we have to make sure that as a media brand, we are having fun.
Yeah. But that's always happened, hasn't it? I mean, media brands, broadsheets were always, they were weighty. You looked intelligent when you read a broadsheet, but you may have been looking at the cartoon. There was always some form of entertainment, a crossword or a cartoon or a lighter piece in there. There's no real change in that. It's just, you've got so many different ways of doing it.
Yeah, I think so. That's a real challenge. And I think there's a lot of parallels between newspapers and websites and social media. And as you say, there's a lot of fundamentals that go across them all.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at the Yorkshire Post in Leeds, we changed the crossword and we had hundreds of letters, phone calls. That was the major thing. And it just reminded me that the news is important, but we're more than that. People come to news brands, not just golf news, but brands in general for a multitude of reasons. And a lot of it is just because it's a daily routine where they can have fun and do different things.
Yeah, this is true. And again, it goes back to that trust thing, doesn't it? I mean, I get my news from, I look at, and I'm not saying this because you're here, I would look at golf news every day. I would look also at your competitor, at least Times, every day. It's kind of a duty in this role to look and to see what people are saying. But for international news, I obviously use my phone for that. I use computer as well. But I look to the BBC. I'm a British guy, so I look to the BBC. I trust the BBC. But I feel as though I'm not invested in the brand. That's the wrong word. But I do have a level of trust that still holds.
Yeah, and trust is our number one value.
Yeah.
So we have values at work on the wall, which we've put in the last 12 months. And trust is probably the main one because as a news brand, as any brand really, if people know they can come to us and they can trust what they read and what they see, that is our place in the market. That means that we saw during the conflict that, and we're seeing it still now, that millions of people came to us directly. So not through social media, not through any kind of aggregator or anything. They just went to gulfnews.com because they thought, what is happening? I need to check and find out what's happening. I'm sure Khaleej Times did similar in the National, because we're all in that similar space. But it shows that that's where those brands sit in the marketplace. People didn't go to social media as much. They thought, this is serious. I need to go to the guys that we can trust.
And we are, I mean, by nature, because this is, culture is perhaps more conservative, I think, in this region. By nature, we're much less sensationalist anyway.
Yeah.
Aren't we, I suppose? And people know that if they go to Golf News, as an example, that it's not that it's the party line, but it's perhaps more responsibly reported in accordance with the authorities. Is that a reasonable way to put it?
Yeah, I think people say to us, I get asked is it state or control, etc. But it's more cultural here. Yeah. We fit into the culture here of how people do business, how people operate here, and news isn't that same culture where a lot of it is about respect, patience, time. It's not as fast. Business here works in a similar way where it's about going for coffee with the people, sitting down, being human, taking time. It's not walking to a boardroom saying, let's make this deal now. It's just a different way of how the culture operates here. And one of the other things that we've done in the last 12 months, well, just before I came in, is Gulf News now is completely free to read because we thought in this marketplace, it's really important that people have access to free content. We did have a paywall.
You did, yeah.
Now we're really pushing on coming to Gulf News is free because people need that information. Actually, that's probably been borne out in the last few months of how important that is. That I would hate to have a paywall in the last few months when people actually really needed
Since February the 28th, not such a great idea.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I'd have to be honest with you, actually. When the paywall went up, that did kind of drive me away.
Yeah, of course.
A little bit. Of course, I mean, naturally it does. Yeah. Do you think that audiences now, consumers or news consumers, news readers, as in newspaper readers, are more emotionally driven in how they take in their news? do people much more kind of choose their own narrative or a narrative that validates, their biases or how they feel rather than being objective?
I think a big part of it is, going back to social media again, is how media is consumed now, and those algorithms all push us into tunnels where we get the same views over and over again, and we get all of our own thoughts echoed back to us, and it creates this world where we're not getting other people's opinions. And actually,
you have to make a real effort.
Yeah, you do.
For that to not happen.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of newspapers back in the day, when that was the biggest source of news, is you end up reading things that you wouldn't necessarily consume. So you turn to page 3 and there's a story, you thought, oh, that's actually quite interesting. Turn to page 5, you think, oh, that's even more interesting.
Interesting that you pick page 3 there.
Yeah, so the UK and me.
UK perspective.
And you kind of, you read things that wouldn't necessarily pop up, where now, because of the algorithms, it's feeding us things that we're already interested in, and it's pushing us into just the same views over and over again, and it's creating this bipolarity that we're seeing in the market. Not as much here, I don't think, but definitely as we're seeing in Europe at the moment. And I don't want to kind of be all kind of philosophical about it, but I always encourage people, even though I am Mr. Gulf News, so to speak, go in the morning, in the evening, go and look at 5 or 6 different brands. Go and look at ourselves, go and look at Khaleej Times, BBC, CNN, and just see how all those stories will be reported slightly differently. And by reading them all, you'll kind of get an understanding of where the middle ground is.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, how different is it for a younger reader or a younger audience compared to previous generations? How do you, I suppose, adapt to the habits of the? I sound like such an old guy saying this. The habits of the younger generation, the kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to that short video is obviously key.
Yeah,
but I do. Yeah, Gen Z is obviously talked about a lot. I'm just a millennial. I'm going to claim to be a millennial. And I remember our generation was taught about how it was going to be different. It was going to change the way that everything worked, and we weren't going to read newspapers. We were going to read
powered
news.
by your parents. And
And I think every generation gets this to an extent. Every new generation is, they're different, they're radical. There's nothing like we've seen before. But actually, what I believe in is those formative teenage years where people kind of trying to get identity and things. A lot of it is about emotion, about politics, about what you stand for.
Yeah.
And what you kind of see really is that people then, as they mature and get a house and a mortgage and kids, they suddenly become interested in interest rates and petrol prices and all that boring stuff, which actually, as older people, we find really interesting. And
well, kind of interesting.
I think as a media brand, I think it's our responsibility is how do we nurture people through that journey? So how are we providing content now to teenagers to get them engaged in the brand, so as they get into news and information more, we are then the brand, the app that they download, the people that they engage with, the people that they trust. And it's a journey, I think, rather than saying we're just going to chuck everything at Gen Z and that's the future.
It's
more how do we create a roadmap for those people.
You've got to be consistent, haven't you? Because, I mean, it's I always think kind of your relationship with whatever your favourite media brand is, but it used to be, it would be your favourite newspaper. And you would like it for whatever reason, however the newspaper leaned. But it's a little bit like your relationship with your bank. Generally speaking, it's kind of lifelong. So you have to be consistent with that person. Not change too much, but change enough that it doesn't affect them. I don't know how you do it.
And listen. Listen's the most important thing. Listen to the readers. Listen to what people actually think.
Listening's more important than we realise.
Yeah, because
we hear stuff, but do we really listen to stuff?
Yeah, because most media brands, I'm sure we're different, but most media brands are really good at broadcasting, telling people, but not very good at listening, actually thinking, what do people really want from us? Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm going to make a concerted effort to really listen to you for the last minute of this interview. I had loads of things I wanted to ask you, and I've really only got time for one more question. But one of the things I wanted to put to you, Mark, is this. Globally, we're kind of warned and reminded all the time to not have faith in institutions, to not believe in the media. It's fake news this, and it's whatever. I'm not going to get... But how trusted is mainstream journalism, do you think, now?
Well, I think it's really by geography to an extent.
Right.
I think it's in Europe, from what we see, I can talk about the UK quite well. We are seeing that it's become more polarised, it's become more politicised, it's become more about, does this brand have my beliefs, and if they don't have my beliefs, then they're wrong, which is a dangerous thing, I think, because we all have opinions, and it's how people actually listen to other people's opinions that create a a good society.
We know what opinions are like.
Yeah.
And we all have
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And so I think it's getting hard, but I think what the most important thing we have to do is things like this. We have to be human beings. We have to get ourselves in front of camera, speaking to people, showing that it's not a big, nasty brand that just publishes all this information all the time. That's a bunch of people in a room trying their best in hard circumstances often the time to get the best product out there. And that's all a newspaper and a news brand and a website and social media is. It's a bunch of creative people trying to tell a story.
It would be a nice place to end, but I just wanted to add something to that. I think a lot of us look at if there's something about something being written and printed that gives it more credence.
Yes.
For some reason. I don't quite know what that is. And it's worth remembering, isn't it, that when you talk to somebody who is adamant about an article or a particular journalist or a particular politician, well, it says it there, and you always think, fine, that's an opinion, that's a viewpoint, that's part of a story, part of a narrative. But that was written by a journalist in a room.
Yeah.
And it's just another guy or girl, no judgment here, with a job to do. That's all it is. Because it's written and published and printed, it doesn't really add anything other than the fact that it's been made available to you.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we very often we forget.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to preach here, but it's just something that bothers me.
No, I think as a journalist by trade that I'm naturally skeptical, and I'd encourage everyone to remain skeptical that when you read something you think, who is that person? What's their background?
Yeah.
Why are they writing about that certain point at this certain moment in time? I think that's really important. But also, I just really encourage people to just engage with the news. Don't just go down a tunnel and think, I'm going to go on social media, I'm going to go on the forums and discuss what my view is. Just go out there, listen to things, read things, watch things on TV, form your own opinions, but try and form your opinions with a mixed bunch of resources.
It's amazing how different it is when you sit and talk to somebody, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%.
Loads more questions to ask you. I'm well over time, and I appreciate you being here. Mark Thompson is the editor-in-chief at Golf News.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to have you here. Stay updated at our website, mirabusiness.fm, and via our Mira Business FM WhatsApp channel, which is whatsapp.mira.fm.
Mira Business FM, the sound of success. Mira Business FM. The sound of success.
This is Mira Business FM. It is the morning drive. Welcome. More than 100 days into the conflict, and concerns are growing over maritime security in the Strait of Hormuz. One of the world's busiest shipping routes, carries roughly a fifth of the world's petroleum consumption daily. Here with us to discuss the risks facing commercial shipping, stranded sailors, and what the latest tensions mean for the Gulf is Christopher Long, Head of Intelligence and Compliance at Neptune P2P Group. Christopher, good to have you on the programme.
Good morning.
We've just crossed the 100-day threshold of the conflict, Christopher. How would you describe the situation, the current situation for commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz right now?
Well, I think 100 days in, I'm almost 60 days over what I thought was going to be the length of this conflict. I think everyone's acknowledged now that things are almost at a stalemate. There is shipping passing through the Straits, but very limited numbers, as you know. There's still a lot of ships waiting in the Persian Gulf to come out. Still a lot of ships waiting to go in. The present situation is that the Iranians have created a corridor of their own for ships to transit, which they can negotiate with Iran to travel through. But then there's also a semi-unofficial route, which is taking ships through Omani waters. I've actually seen, I believe I've seen more and more ships taking that route in the last week or so, despite the threats that are present in that.
From an intelligence perspective, how severely has the risk profile for a standard commercial vessel transiting the Strait altered over the last few weeks? You say that there has been more traffic, as it were, but how has that risk profile adjusted?
Well, I think, you got one or two ships go through, that encourages other people to take the risk, and it is a risk.
Yeah.
A lot of ships going through, as you know, without their identification system on. That doesn't mean to say they can't be seen by Iran particularly. Also, you've got the US naval side of effect, if you like, of them trying to stop Iranian-bound traffic, inbound and outbound. So there's threats to all sides of the conflict. Ships are taking the risk, which puts crew in danger, and also those that would need to come to anyone's rescue. I think that's the other side of the coin that people aren't looking at.
Let me ask you a little bit about the crews. I'm interested in talking about some of the sailors that are stranded, the crews that are stranded. How are crews trained or being trained to respond to a situation like this?
In many cases, they're not. The master will have some direction from the company security officer of what methods, if you like, what procedures his crew should take when they are trying to transit the Strait. I mean, in general, those would be to get as many people off the deck as possible into a safe place safe-ish place within the ship. But there's very little that a commercial ship can do to prepare itself for an attack by a drone or a missile that's coming up.
Can we look at how the kind of the threat matrix has evolved? I mean, in the past, maritime security in this region was focused on traditional piracy or conventional naval posturing. Today, tactics are much more covert. They're technologically far more advanced. How are private security firms, Christopher, and shipping fleets adjusting to non-traditional, if you like, more faster moving risks?
Yeah. Well, one point to make is that ships going through the Strait of Hormuz are very unlikely to have a guard service on. If they are, I mean, the way to counter traditional piracy was to carry armed guards. Now, armed guards aren't going to be allowed to transit the Strait of Hormuz. If they do, then their weapons would have to be locked up. And certainly from our perspective, if it was a team from Neptune, then those guards would be directed not to respond to any state nation action, i.e. Iranian boarding or approach by Iran. What we have provided recently is a team of unarmed security advisors to try to provide information to the ship's master during a transit with SOH, which allows the master to understand the issues that he faces as he goes around, and to provide reassurance to the crew.
Can we turn back to the human element? Ships obviously don't move themselves. When a vessel is rerouted or delayed or worse, detained or seized, the crew bears the immediate brunt of that crisis. So there are thousands of seafarers, by most estimates, stranded in and around the Gulf region. What's the reality on the water for those crews today?
The reality is that I think, generally, and I talk to a lot of shipping companies, there's not an issue with providing those ships with water, food, etc. That support. The shipping agencies are doing a great job of doing that. I think boredom, I think anxiety. Obviously, these ships don't know if they're going to be a next target of attack, and also the fact that there's just no end in sight to when this is going to happen. I don't know, but it's unlikely that many shipping companies are changing crews while they're there. So, as you said earlier, some ships have been there 100 days, and they may have been there a month before that. So we're looking now at a period of six months almost, where a crew member's not been home and not seen his family, etc. But so yeah, and I think post the whole situation, we're going to see a lot of traumatized crew that's going to need support when they get back to their home countries. It's a tricky situation. There's not a lot shipping companies can do to alleviate that issue.
No, there really isn't. I mean, it's an incredible level of mental, I suppose, physical pressure as well on seafarers operating in a. It's very different operating in a high risk maritime zone. I guess it must be.
Absolutely. From day to day, that those crew members don't know if they're going to be attacked today. It's uncertainty, I think, which causes anxiety and not knowing when it's going to end.
When seafarers are forced to transit a lane like the Strait of Hormuz, under the threat of potentially sudden escalation, what kind of psychological and operational strain does that place on ship management?
Well, obviously it's their responsibility for the safety, duty of care they provide to that ship, their crew. It is a concern, but we're seeing more and more companies willing to take that risk, whether that's in agreement with the crew or the master. We're unsure, but certainly we're seeing more shipping companies take the risk.
What precautions are shipping companies now taking before they send vessels through the Strait, if indeed they're able to? What alternate, I guess, shipping routes or strategies are proving to be the most effective for companies trying to mitigate, to reduce risk around the Straits of Hormuz?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's two routes at the moment. You can go through the Iranian prescribed transit corridor, or there's a southern route which takes you through Mani waters, but also that takes you through an area which Iran, on its semi-official sources, declared that they had mined or alluded to there being mines in that area. about a month ago. Since that's happened, we've seen multiple ships go through there. Nobody's hit a mine yet. However, last week we did see that some video footage purporting to be from a fisherman in that area that showed a floating mine. We don't know if that's a legacy mine from many years ago or it was one that was recently laid. But certainly that's the biggest threat to ships in that particular area. Maybe just an Iranian attempt to prevent shipping going through that southern route. But just by mentioning that they possibly have placed mines is enough to send panic through the shipping industry.
Sure, literally the mere mention. In a case where a ship is seized or held, maybe due to international sanctions and local conflicts, what legal and physical protections exist for international crews? Who is actively negotiating for their safety and potentially for their release, were that the case?
All shipping really is governed by the International Maritime Organization. They had, within the shipping industry, you've got multiple types of ships. Obviously, you've got cargo ships, energy ships, LNG, oil tankers. Each of those has an association providing guidance to their particular ship type. But the IMO is the overarching controlling government body, if you like. They are putting pressure on the UN. The UN are putting pressure on Iran, but at the moment, Iran obviously isn't responding to any of that pressure.
Okay. What role are international naval forces able to play, Christopher, to help commercial ships transit safely? And I mean, are those measures enough to reassure crews and shipping companies?
At the moment, the international naval community isn't involved in this situation at all. You've got the US and Iran. They're the only naval vessels probably, well, I know, in that region at the moment.
Yep.
When the international community will come to play will be after a permanent ceasefire is reached, and there will be a need then for an international effort to clear the Strait of any potential mines that are in that area and unexploded ordnance. That will include mine sweepers, mine hunters, but that could take up to 6 months. We believe it'll take at least 6 months to effectively clear the Strait of any mines and for shipping industry to regain confidence that there isn't a threat in the area.
Aside from the threat that the sailors, the shipping companies are having to undergo to live through at the moment, there's the impact on regional supply chains, there's the impact on global supply chains. And if these high-risk zones remain volatile indefinitely, the uncertainty is obviously the point right now, is there a risk of a tipping point when international maritime unions and crews just say, look, refuse to board vessels bound for the Gulf, which would obviously affect regional supply chains even further?
Yep, that could happen today. I mean, it's just every crewman's right not to transit a particular area. They can make that assertion, if you like, to their company. They don't want to do that. The thing is, then this will force shipping industries into paying more to entice them, if you like, to transit those areas. And then that additional cost will have to be offset by the company, which then comes down to the consumer. The consumer always is the end stop, if you like, for any piece of war risk insurance, for example, increasing oil price. And if you're paying a crew more, you've got to offset that against your profit margin, and therefore it's the consumer that always suffers, if you like, in the end.
Can I ask you a question about maritime insurance? You mentioned it there, but underwriters for maritime insurance, how are they reacting to this 100-day, we're just past the 100-day milestone? Have we seen insurance premiums hit a level that forces smaller independent operators out of the Gulf?
I think the concern is that it will push more operators into not taking insurance. That's a big concern. I'm not an insurance expert, but I've seen figures that prior to the conflict, whole risk insurance was about 0.25% of the ship's value. That hit a peak of around 10% of the ship's value. And that was for US and Israeli linked vessels. That's sort of come back and stabilized at around 2.5% of the whole value. So if you're talking about a ship that's worth $10-20 million, that's a large sum of money, which again has to be passed on to the consumer.
Looking ahead, I'm interested in your thoughts. It's a vague question, but your reaction. What signs would indicate that the maritime security situation is improving, both for obviously commercial shipping, but also for the sailors?
Well, I think in the last 2 weeks, really, I've seen signs that it is improving, although it is improving for ships that are willing to take the risk of going through the Strait. We've only seen one vessel, I think, in the last 2-3 weeks attacked and hit. We know that other vessels have transited through the Strait. From our own experience, we've escorted vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Those vessels did see some kinetic activity, i.e. splashes, near to those vessels. So the threat is real. Sorry, I've lost my track there.
No, it's all right. The maritime security situation, the improvements, what signs of improvement would we see for shipping and sailors?
Well, I think the only real improvement everyone is looking for is an agreement between Iran and the US to cease their activities. Until that time, ships are going to take a chance. Others won't. We're going to be impacted commercially, and also this whole impact on crew and shipping is going to stay valid.
Final question for you, Christopher. We often hear talk of land corridors or rail networks bypassing key choke points. The streamlined customs route that we now know of as the Green Corridor through Oman has been particularly successful. But realistically, when we talk about the vulnerabilities of global supply chains, all roads kind of lead eventually to the sea. Can any land-based infrastructure ever really offset a prolonged closure or slowdown of the Strait of Hormuz?
No, not totally. We know, as you're probably aware, that the Saudis have diverted a lot of their oil that used to come out of the Persian Gulf across the pipeline that comes out at Yanbu in the Red Sea, and we're seeing a massive increase in shipping transit the Suez Canal heading for Yanbu and those Red Sea ports. As you're probably aware, in the UAE, the port Fujairah is an end terminal for UAE oil, and that port is particularly busy at the moment. I'm doing risk assessments nearly every day for ships that are looking to go to Fujairah to load oil. Ships are willing to take that task, even though Fujairah has been targeted by the Iranians in the past. I mean, the other side of that coin is that Iran is feeling the effect of the US blockade. We understand that Iran itself is looking to export oil through its land borders, north and east of the country. People and countries and organizations adapt and overcome these situations eventually, but it takes time.
Christopher Long is Head of Intelligence and Compliance at Neptune P2P Group. They offer security protection and risk management advisory services. Christopher, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
As always, like and subscribe for more interviews like this from Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.